It is always so good when we have so many kids up here, and especially when they have on princess dresses and sparkly pants. I think that's fantastic. I think that's awesome. I might wear a princess dress next week, and it'll be fun. No, I'll save you that. So we are in our third week of a 4-week series where we are pulling back the curtain. Tyler explained on the first week of this series, and I'll just rehash it just in case you weren't here, that we have access to certain demographic data of our area codes that are around the church, and one of the pieces of that data is to talk about what are the things that create the most anxiety in the folks who live in these zip codes that kind of make up our church population. What are the things that we worry about? What are the things that are constantly on our minds? And what of those things do we really not talk about a whole lot? And so this series, where we're pulling back the curtain on some of those topics, is sort of a family conversation where we're talking about those things out loud. We're pulling back the curtain, which, by the way, if this is your first week here since the new year, that's the reason why the stage looks the way it does. We didn't just forget, okay? But we're pulling back the curtain on some of those conversations. And we've had some really good conversations over the past 2 weeks. And this week, we're going to be pulling back the curtain on the question of weight loss. Now, that is the fourth most worried about thing in our 2 zip codes, according to this really precise demographic data: weight loss. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the 80s, and I was given some really stellar images of what a man should look like. And for me, my number one image that I held on to as a little kid and all the way up through maybe even today is this guy. He-Man. Now, if you were a kid in the 80s and you were playing with He-Man, I don't know what you were doing, okay? Because He-Man was everything. The cartoons, the action figures, it was all about He-Man for me, okay? I think I had pretty much every He-Man figure that you could have. In fact, I had about 8 different versions of He-Man, all right? I had this version, which was the basic He-Man, but I also had the He-Man like where you could hit his chest and it would change and show damage, and I had all these different He-Mans. But this was, for me, what it meant to be a man, okay? Now, as I look at that, now I think a furry loincloth and a horrible haircut maybe isn't the what I should be aiming for. But I used to look at He-Man's body and think, man, if I could just have arms like He-Man, right? If I could just be fit like He-Man, if I could just throw things around like He-Man. Now, I don't have another picture up, but another major influencer in that was also a guy named Hulk Hogan, right? And I was a Hulkamaniac. I wanted the 24-inch pythons, right? So I could defeat Russia and Nikolai Volkov, right? I mean, that was what the 80s were about. And these were the images that I grew up with. Now, some of the women in the room, you might say, yeah, I had some parallel images. It wasn't He-Man, it may have been Barbie, or it may have been She-Ra. But we had these images that we saw, that we played with. These were our toys that subconsciously started to tell us a story, not only about what we should be, but what we're not. And so this idea of weight, of the perfect body, of never quite being at the weight you want to be, became ingrained in us very, very early on. And it's perpetuated through our culture. Day in and day out, we see images of people. Actually, as I was working on this sermon, I was sitting on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. 2 things you don't want to be doing when you're working on a sermon about weight loss is have a 24-hour buffet in front of you and half-naked people, okay? These are not the things you want to be consuming yourself with when you're working on a sermon about weight loss. Now, some of you know that over the past, since March, I've been really trying to focus on my weight. It's something that I've really tried to focus on, and that I've been working really hard on. And I've accomplished some goals in that, and I've been really happy about that. But here's what I realized during this time. is when I say that I'm trying to lose weight, I'm really missing the point. Because this idea of losing weight for most people becomes the focus, when in fact it shouldn't be. It's a part of a whole. Sometimes I think I really miss my opportunity from not being born in like the Victorian era. I think my body would be really hot in Victorian England. Okay. But it's kind of funny though, because if you look through history, if you look at art, it's kind of funny because what is beauty, what is fit, what is the archetype of the man and the woman changes. It's moving goalposts. I think about it kind of like Lucy with Charlie Brown, you know. She's like, I'm not going to move it this time. I'm not going to move it this time. And Charlie finally, he runs, he kicks, and his feet comes out from under him. It's sort of like Lucy picking up the football every time Charlie tries to kick it. The goalposts constantly are moving. What's beautiful 10 years ago is not beautiful today. And what's beautiful today will not be what's beautiful 10 years from now. I was talking about this with Andrew and Amanda and Tyler this past week, and Andrew brought up a concept that I had forgotten about in terms of this sermon. It's a psychological concept called Object A. And if you're familiar with it, I'm going to read you a little synopsis of it here because I think it's helpful. But it's a core concept in psychoanalysis referring to the intangible, lost object that causes desire. A structural reminder from our entry into language, acting as a placeholder for a fundamental lack rather than a specific attainable goal. It's not what we want, but what makes us want. An object cause that drives us to seek fulfillment through a chain of specific but ultimately unsatisfying objects. Layman's terms, the goalposts are always moving. We think we want to be this certain weight. We think we want to look this certain way. We think we want to achieve these certain statuses. And as soon as we do, what do? We find the next thing, the next weight, the next look, the next whatever. And it's this object A, it's this constantly moving goalpost. And it keeps us wanting and working out of a feeling of lack rather than a feeling of abundance or satisfaction. And I think that weight loss, this idea of weight loss, fits right into that Object A mentality. Most of the time when we talk about weight loss, we're talking about it from a sense of fear. We're talking about it from a sense of lacking. We're talking about it because in our brains, we're comparing ourselves. We're comparing ourselves to the neighbor down the street. We're comparing ourselves to some image in a magazine or online. Or maybe we're comparing ourselves to an action figure from the 1980s that has really unrealistic and unhealthy proportions. But we work from this place of fear and lacking instead of actually focusing on what makes the most sense for us. One of the concepts that has been really helpful for me, and I'm going to switch the language here. I used to say I've been on a weight loss journey. I'm switching the language because, in truth, I've been on a health journey. And I want to switch that language for us. Weight loss for me was a component of my health journey. But it is only one component. One of the concepts that I've really subscribed to is what's called your ultimate why. Why are you doing this? And so when I would answer that question, I would say, because I want to lose weight. And the principles I was working through said, no, but why do you want to do that? Well, because I want to be skinnier. Well, why do you want to do that? And it forces you to keep asking the question, why, until you get to the bedrock of your motivation. And for me, the bedrock of my motivation is because I want to see my grandchildren. I don't not only want to see my grandchildren, I want to play with them. I want to get down on the ground with them. I want to wrestle around with my grandchildren. I want to be healthy enough to go on hikes with them. And then all of a sudden, clarity happened. It wasn't about losing weight. It was about longevity. It was about health. It was about being able to live life, not just be alive when I'm older. that question of the why moved me past this object A mentality and into the real reasons why I wanted to do this thing. So as we move from pulling back the curtain on this question of weight loss and switch the idea to what does it mean to be healthy, I want us to explore a few ideas about what it means to be healthy, because here's the thing. Weight loss is one-dimensional. It's one-dimensional. Health is three-dimensional. Health is multidimensional. It's a holistic understanding. So I want us this morning to talk about three understandings of health, and maybe start to switch our minds from this idea of losing weight or attaining some ridiculous body type, and start to think about what does it mean to be healthy individuals. And the first place that we need to start is physical health, right? Because that's generally where the weight loss piece, the anxiety that's fueling today's talk, today's sermon is coming from. It's from a place of physical health. When we think about physical health, we have physicians in the room, we have doctors in the room. Doctors will tell you, yes, weight loss is a piece of it, but it's not just weight, it's strength. It's your core. It's being able to make sure that your body can hold itself up, that it can function the way it needs to. It's cardio. It's what your heart is doing. Can your heart keep up with the production of your body? Can it do that in a healthy way? Can it supply your body with the fuel that it needs? It's about sleep. We found in the past 20 years how incredibly important sleep is to overall health. It's about gastrointestinal, right? It's about the things we eat, the things we put into our body, the balances in our body. It's about making sure that all this is working the way it should as well. It's about stress, right? Something that happens in our minds tremendously affects our body. You ever have a stressful week and your chest feels tight? Yeah, it's psycho and it's physical. This idea of health is multidimensional. It's about flexibility. I know probably all of us feel that right now, right? None of us are probably as flexible as we need to be, but it's about flexibility. It's about being able to move our bodies, that our muscles are not so tense and so tight that we can actually physically move around. It's about all of these internal systems, all the things that we put into our body. And so when we think about physical health, yes, weight is a part of that, but there's so much more. I was thinking, actually, when we were on our cruise as a family a couple weeks ago, I was thinking, if we got stranded on one of these islands, number one, that'd be awesome. But if we got stranded on one of these gorgeous islands, and we got stranded there for a very, very long period of time, and no one knew we were there, I was thinking, what would I care about? Six-pack abs are not what I'm focusing on if I'm stranded on a desert island with my family. What I'm focusing on there is health. Can I get enough good nutrients so that my body doesn't start to deteriorate? Can I take care of myself so I can be here to help my family? I'm not really worried about how I look as much as how I am in that situation. And so I think it's an interesting mind experiment when we find ourselves focusing on certain things. When we find ourselves preoccupied with things that are probably external, maybe a helpful mind experiment is just to ask the question, so if I'm stuck on a desert island with just my family, no one to impress, no one to compare myself to in that way, what am I focusing on in those moments, in those days and weeks and months? Because it might help us sort through some of the things that we're being told to focus on versus the things that we actually want to focus on. It helps us differentiate object A from the things that we actually desire in our lives for our physical health. So physical health is one of the ways that we pull back the curtain on this. But also mental and emotional health is such a huge part of what we do. And we could spend a 6-week sermon series talking about what it means to be mentally and emotionally healthy, and we don't have that much time. So I want to bring up one thing that I've been learning here lately. I was listening to a neuroscientist. She does work in psychology out of Stanford University. I was listening to an interview with her the other day, and she was talking about how much our mental health affects our physical health, which we know in concept. But she was talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. She was talking about the stories that the narratives that we tell ourselves that actually are so detrimental to our mental and emotional health. She said that the brain makes up stories about the things it sees, the things it experiences, and it makes up these stories in order to be able to categorize those things, in order to be able to move past those things. It puts it in a box so that we can understand it, so that it fits sort of our worldview. One of the questions that she asks is, what actual world are you living in? The one that you have constructed in your mind, or the real one? I don't know about you, but I tell myself stories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I tell myself stories about myself, about who I am, about my value, about my worth. I tell myself stories about other people and their motivations and who they are. I make up stories 24 hours a day, and I've been really trying to practice taking a step back from the stories I make up and actually asking the question, what do I know about what's actually going on versus what am I making up? What narrative am I making up? What story am I telling myself? It's been a wildly helpful exercise for me. That when I start to tell myself a story about myself, when I start to say, oh, you're this way because, or the story I tell myself, this is going to sound crazy. I tell myself the story all the time, you're going to have a heart attack and die, Stephen. I'm being vulnerable, like for real. That's the story I tell myself all the time. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud, and that's part of the reason why I'm saying it out loud. Because I realize how silly of a story that is. I might, but I'm probably not. And as silly as that story is, you probably tell yourself some pretty silly ones about yourself too. So I just give that to us as something to think about, as a tool to maybe, every time we make an assumption, every time we start to tell a story, maybe just press the pause button and say, okay, is this a false narrative? Are there truths in here? Or am I just trying to make things fit? Or am I just making up silly stuff that ultimately is not helping, but is hurting? So we talked a little bit about physical health, talked a little bit about mental and emotional health. So I want to use this last couple minutes to make a pretty big announcement. I've decided that I'm retiring from ministry. I've decided that I'm retiring from ministry because I, today, am announcing that I am going to play for Manchester United. I am going to be a Premier League footballer, what you Americans call soccer. And I'm going to go play for the Red. Now here's the thing. I'm already halfway there. I have the jersey. All I got to do is get the shorts, and I'll be able to walk on the pitch at Old Trafford. Yeah, you laughed at this, but humor me for a second. I know the songs. Glory, glory, Man United, right? We know the song. I know the John Denver, Take Me Home Country Roads. We sing it before every match, right? I know the songs. I got half the jersey. I still got to get the shorts. I know the legends. Sir Alex Ferguson, the greatest coach in Premier League history. Cristiano Ronaldo, David Beckham, Wayne Rooney. I can tell you every single one of our players, the positions they play and the things they're doing. I understand the philosophy of my team, Manchester United. We've been running a 4-3-3-1, and I don't know, Jeff and Ian, if you're in the room, but we whipped up on Man City yesterday in the Manchester Derby, all right? Running that 4-3-3-1. So I understand the philosophy. I know the legends. I have half the uniform. I watch the matches religiously. I don't know if you realize or not, but we're in a different time zone than Manchester. I got up at 6 a.m. yesterday to watch the Manchester Derby, and I love it. This is absurd. I'm a 45-year-old man with a busted Achilles, and I can't run a mile. Okay? Soccer cleats give me blisters. I don't want blisters. This is absurd. I do this, one, because I really like Manchester, and I like to talk about it. But really and truly, I do this to kind of get us thinking about spiritual health. I think we're really sick as a country in Western Christianity in terms of our spiritual health. I think we're actually more like me saying I'm retiring from ministry, which, by the way, I'm not. I'm not giving up my day job. I think we're more like me saying I'm going to retire from ministry and go and play for Manchester United than we maybe would like to believe. We wear the uniform. We know the legends, Paul, Jesus, Moses. We know the stories. We can tell you theology, the philosophy of the team. We even go and sing the songs. We watch the games religiously. There's a massive disassociation between wearing the uniform and singing the songs and knowing the players than actually playing the game. As we judge, as we think about our own spiritual health, I'm not asking you to judge other people's spiritual health. I want you to think about your own as I think about my own. Are we super fans? Or are we actually playing the game? Are we actually doing the things? As we consider our spiritual health, both as individuals, as a church, as a country, we can't ask ourselves, are we wearing the right thing? Do we have a cross on our neck? Do we go to the matches? Do we know the players? Rather, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing the thing? Our spiritual health is not based on all the external stuff. It's based on what we're doing. Are we loving neighbors? Are we taking up for those who can't take up for themselves? Are we showing Jesus' love and grace and goodness in this world? Are we making room for everybody? It's not about the uniform. It's not about showing up at the matches. It's about what we're doing. So as we think about health, I want us to think about it in these three ways: physical, emotional, and spiritual. There's other pieces, but I'm already almost over time. We can't keep going. I think maybe one of the answers is this idea of shalom. Shalom it's often translated as peace. It's more than that. It's a holistic peace. It's a holistic balance. I hope that as we think about physical health, mental, emotional health, and spiritual health, I hope that we'll think about it in the context of shalom, in the context of a holistic way of living, that our actions match up with our belief, that we're not focusing on one piece of the pie, but we're focusing on the whole thing, that we're not telling stories about ourselves and others that are just simply not true, that we're in the game, not just super fans. I think the beautiful thing about shalom is it's not only the destination, but it's also the way we get to the destination. That we're practicing holistic peace, holistic understandings of ourselves and of others, and of our faith. That we're not disassociating what we believe with what we support and what we do. So my prayer for us is simple as this, is that we will practice shalom, that our health will be holistic, and that we won't get hung up on the pieces of the puzzle, but zoom out and see the whole thing. Let's pray.